In this project, we're going to build a chatbot that understands the FAQ, or frequently asked questions, of a website and can answer questions from a user in a natural language way. We're going to use as an example the FAQs from the popular ride service Lyft. We're going to build this in 3 parts. In part 1, we're going to build the flow to collect the information from the website and then store that in a vector store. In part 2, we're going to build the flow to query the information. And in part 3, we're going to embed the flow into a website and customize the chat interface. In this video, I'm going to show how to automatically collect the information from a website and use that to create a chatbot. I'll be using Lyft, a popular ride-sharing platform, as an example. Here we see the frequently asked questions. As you can see, it's very comprehensive. What I want to do is automatically collect this information, store that, and then be able to use a chatbot to retrieve that information in a natural language way. Okay, so let's start building this flow. As usual, I start with the add new. And the first thing I'm going to add into the canvas is one document loader called Cheerio Web Scraper. So as you can see here, the purpose of this web scraper is to go to a website and then get the information and then be able to connect that to a vector store. All right, so I'm going to select this and I'm going to do the usual thing. I'm going to now add my text splitter. So my text splitter is what chunks up the information into segments that can then be vectorized and then uploaded to the vector store. So in the text splitter section, I'm going to use my recursive text splitter. And then I'm going to connect the two. And then I'm going to have a little bit of an overlap just so that there's more context information. All right, so this 2 boxes will go to a website that I specify. So in this case, I will pick the website that points to the FAQ. And then now I'm going to add in a vector store. So this vector store will be a pinecone vector store that I'm going to upsert or insert into. And as you can see here, I can connect my documents. And what I'm going to do is add in what I'm going to use to embed this information. So embedding is the process of converting text into a set of vector numbers. So I'm going to use my OpenAI embedding engine, and I'm going to connect it to here. I'm going to then add the various API keys that I need. So OpenAI, then my Pinecone. So this is my vector data store, Pinecone environment, and the index. Okay. Let's also add my namespace. So the namespace is where I can keep this collection of information. So I'll go ahead and add in here that it is Lyft FAQ. And I'm going to just leave the default top K to 4. So this is you can specify this number, and we can go through that later in the tutorial, where when you fetch the information, this is the amount of information that it will fetch per query. So we'll leave it as default for now. So we'll go ahead and save it. And then this will be my Lyft. Sorry. So this is my flow that will go to this website, and it will go and crawl the website and then upsert into my vector store. Now there's one last thing I need to do. In order to have it to uh, recurse, that is, go multiple levels into your website, you have to turn this on. And then this parameter here, uh, web scrape links limit. So this is how many links you want it to crawl. Okay, so let's start with 10 and then see. All right, so we'll just save. Okay, now we need to add an additional component. So this component is my conversational agent. So I'm going to go to my chains, and then I'm going to select conversational retrieval QA chain. So this is what takes the input from the user and calls into the vector store. So I'm going to specify my language model. And I'm going to use my OpenAI language model also here. So I'll go ahead and specify that. I will also hook up the pinecone retriever into the vector store retriever. All right. And then I'm going to input my API keys here as well. And I'm going to specify the temperature as 0. So temperature of 0 means that there's less creativity for the language model, so it's more factual. So I'll do that. I'll save it, and then I'll start using it. And the first question I use on it, it will go and execute this flow, go to the website, scrape it, and then insert all the elements into the Pinecone vector store. So I'll just say, how do I hail a ride? Right. So it's going through that process right now and starting to load up the vector store. So what's happening underneath the covers when you first ask the first question is that it's going to scrape the website and it's going to populate my Pinecone vector store. As you can see in this web page here, the total vectors that was inserted into the vector store, it was initially 0, and now it's added 792 vectors. Okay, so after it's inserted all the vectors into the vector store that represents the website information, it is able to give you the answer to your question. So I'm just going to give it a few more questions just to see that it is working. I'm going to go right from here and ask some questions and then just validate the answers, right? So I'm just going to again ask a couple of questions, how to rate your driver, all right? So I'll go and ask this question here. Okay, you can rate your driver on a scale of 1 to 5. The stars with 5 being the highest. You can rate the driver on the rate and pay screen at the end of each ride. So I'm just going to go into here and just validate. You can rate your driver on a scale. So it's found this information. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. Let's do a couple more. The next question I'm going to ask is, how do I estimate the cost of a Lyft ride? All right, so I'll just copy this question and I'll validate this afterwards. Okay, so I'll go to my screen and ask how to estimate the cost of a Lyft ride. Right, so it tells you you can go to the fare estimate feature in the Lyft app. So in here, all right, it shows you here that you can get a fare estimate through the web by using Lyft's fare estimator. right? So it's able to find that information for you. Let's do one more. How do you tip your driver? So I'll ask this question. All right, and it gives you information about the specifics of this. And let's see. Right, so it gives you information about you can tip up to 74 hours after a ride is complete. And there's details like that in this query as well. So it looks like it's done a pretty good job at taking the information and summarizing it so that a vector store can be able to be queried. In the previous section, we built a flow that we used to upsert or insert into the Pinecone document everything that we scraped from our website, and then we queried it. Now, we want to build a flow that is similar but does not need the upserting or inserting operation because once you insert it, we primarily want to just query it. So what I'm going to do is start with this flow, the upsert flow, and then I'm going to just duplicate the chat flow so that I get my starting point. All right. So I'm going to change this Pinecone upsert document component into a slightly different one. So if you go into the vector store, you'll see also another similar icon, but instead of Pinecone upsert document, you're going to have Pinecone load existing index. So this is essentially a read only. So after you've loaded it, now you primarily want to just use it and ask questions. So I'm going to delete this and I'm going to insert it here. And I don't need this component anymore. So this web scraper is primarily used for populating the vector store. I'll delete that as well as this component. All right. And then I will wire this up again. So I will go here and wire it up here. And then I will also add my API keys. So I have my Pinecone API key and the region as well as the index, which is a course. All right. And I have my namespace is lift AQ. All right. And I will wire this up here. And then I'm going to save it and name it lift query. I'm going to do one additional thing. I'm going to turn on this return source document. So I'm going to press this button and then I'll show you what it does. So I'll save this flow and I'm going to start my query. I'm going to say, how do I hail a ride? So what it's doing here is, again, going into my vector store with this new flow. And this vector store is represented by just a read-only or load existing index. So it will go in here and request that information from this store. And when it comes back, it's going to not only return the context to answer the question, but also the source document. So you can see here, if I click on here, it'll tell me where it got that information, right? So this is where it found the information from, and this is actually the source of that information. So if I select this and then I open that URL, this is where it got this information. Now, the next thing I want to just highlight is if you go to the additional parameters, you can actually control how many of the vectors you return. So for example, if you said, I just want the top two, right? We'll go ahead and see what happens. So I'll save it and then I'll rerun this again. I'll say, how do I hail a ride? Notice before I had 4 source documents. Now that I've specified my K parameter to be 2 in the pinecone load existing index component, see what happens. So it's just going to give you the top 2. All right. So there's some flexibility here in terms of what you can ask from the vector store, and then also whether or not you want to display the return source documents so that you can verify the information as you look at um, the results. In this video, we're going to show how to embed the information that you have collected from the frequently asked questions into a website chat widget so that a user going to the website can interact with that information that you've collected in a natural language way. For illustration purposes, I've picked a sample website and a sample HTML file that we can use to customize. So let's take a look at what's in this HTML. So I've opened up this HTML index.html within my code editor, and it's what you expect, a very simple boilerplate that has various different sections in the HTML body. Now I'm going to use this, and I'm going to insert the code snippet that will enable my chat bubble to appear on the website. Okay, now I'm back into my flow, the lift query flow that we created earlier. Now what I'm going to do is select this top right button, and there's 4 sections at the top. This is how you can interact with the flow that you built. You can do that through embedding, through Python, through JavaScript, or through curl. So we're going to use embedding, and I'm going to select this checkbox here, show embedded chat config. So this gives me a lot more flexibility in terms of the customization. So I'll select this, and I will go ahead and copy this code. Now I'm going to use this code into my code editor. Now I'm back into my index.html page, and I'm going to insert the snippet that I just copied into the right place. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to search for body tag, and then I'm going to paste the code snippet that I got from Flowise. As you can see, it inserts this script section, and it has a number of details which we'll go through later. But now why don't we just save this and then see how it looks. So I'm going to now open a default browser. Okay, in the browser, you can see the previous web page. And then now there's also now a new button. So this button was not there before, and it is inserted by the code that we just added into the HTML file. So if I open this button, it'll tell me, hello, this is a custom welcome message. So I can start asking questions. So how do I hail a ride? All right, so it's connected to the information that I scraped, and when I ask the question, it will go and execute the flow and then provide me with that answer. So it seems to be working well. Now let's see what we can do to customize this. So let's walk through this script in a little bit more detail in terms of the different things that it has and what you can customize. So first, what you can see is the chat flow ID. So this is the flow that, this is the ID that when you call into your server, into your Flowise server, it identifies which flow you want to execute. In this case, it's our lift query flow. And then this is the host. And then these in the theme JSON here, there is button. So you can customize what's the background color and the placement and the size of the button. You can also change a custom icon for this button. And further down here, you can customize the welcome message. You can customize the avatar or the profile pic for the bot. And also you can customize the avatar or profile pic also for the user. And then you can also customize the text input in terms of the placeholder that you see at the bottom. So let's just make a couple of changes and see how this works. So I'll just make a very simple one. I'll just change my welcome message first. Hello, welcome to the site. Right, and then I'll change the default placeholder here. Okay, so I'll say, please type your question. Go ahead and save that. And then I will see how this looks like in the browser. All right, let's look at this now. So I'm gonna select this, and you can see it changed welcome to the site, and the bottom is please type your questions. All right, so I'm just gonna make another change, and then we'll see that also reflected. One of the things that you probably want to do is change this icon here. So we'll go ahead and make that change and see how that looks like in this after we make the change. Okay, I'm just going to now make some changes to the avatar. So I'm going to change from the parrot icon to my own custom one. So I have one saved in this URL that I will just cut and paste into here so that we use this instead. So I'll go into here and select this new URL. I'll save it, and then we'll go ahead and see how it looks like. Okay, so let's see if that change is taking into effect. So I'll go ahead and take a look at my screen again, and sure enough, I have a new avatar picture that is shown here. And then the previous changes I've made are also here. So let's see if this continues to work. How do I hail a ride? Right. So it continues to work in the same way that we expected when we ask questions. And of course, you can change the color of this response. You can change this avatar and various other things. So lots of customizations that you can do. But now let me just close off this video in just to point out one additional thing. So this widget now is connected to the flow that we built. Now, what if you want to make some changes to the flow? How will it get reflected in terms of this widget? So let me just make a quick change just to show you how this would look like. So I'm going back to my flow here, the lift query flow. Now, I'm going to select this button, return source documents. So as you recall, when I select this, when it queries the Pinecone vector store, it's going to return the source documents. And what this says here is that I want to also display that within my chat window. So I'm going to turn this on, and I'm going to now save the chat flow. Now I'm going to go back to my example. All right, I'm going to now ask the same question. Okay, so it's giving me the same answer, but it's also enabled the source context, right? So it went back to the flow, it took the modifications, and now when I click on this, it now gives me additional information on what the reference was or what the source was originally that I used to collect this information. So just to sum up, there are a lot of customization options that are available when embedding the chat flow into your website. Additionally, as you make changes to the flow logic itself, it will automatically be updated to the embedded chat bubble.